Welcome back to another video on Gearsaw Studios, and today I'm going to show you how to build a Zeppelin, because imagine this view in survival mode. It would just be a really nice view, and it's always nice to have giant floating structures in the sky, and it might take a while, but still, it's definitely worth the payoff. Before I begin, remember, please like and subscribe, and without further ado, onto the tutorial. Going back to the ground real quick, we have 3 blocks that I'd recommend using for the actual Zeppelin / blimp. Either is okay. I know there's whole framing on the inside of a Zeppelin, but we're not doing an interior for that. So I recommend white concrete, but of course that's obscenely expensive for the size of this build, so white wool and snow are viable alternatives. For the actual part where the pilot goes, then we use gray concrete, light gray concrete, birch and dark oak planks, along with some glass. Then, find yourself a nice open area in the sky. Unfortunately, you cannot build a Zeppelin underground, which is incredibly disappointing. Although, you could technically just make an obscenely large cave. In that case, you can do that. Before we do any Zeppelin building, first off, we need to get a model. Because Zeppelins are very large, we are going to be using the shape generator I provided in the description. Just scroll down, should be plotco.uk, and of course, if that didn't work, you can just copy the link here. Then, you want to set the settings to whatever you want, but I recommend 32, 96, 32, 6. And that will result in this shape right here, which we are going to build in-game. And you'll need 6,680 blocks, which is equivalent to about 2 double chests of blocks. And accounting for item loss, yeah. Get yourself a double chest of blocks. And once you're ready, go back in game and get all the resources you need. Then tower up maybe 50 to 60 blocks into the air. Before you start building, first you need to, of course, figure out how to use the tool. I recommend switching between 3D and 2D because it tells you a lot when you put it in 2D. Much easier to build, even if you don't want to build a Zeppelin and you're just watching me for my voice. First off, thank you, and second off, well, it's a very useful tool. You should use it whenever you need to build a giant shape. And you can use the depth slider in order to see what layer. And if you are doing this in creative mode, you only have to do the top left quadrant, or top right, bottom left. It doesn't matter which one, but the numbers are top left. But anyways, you want to build this quadrant because we can use structure blocks to mirror it, and we can then just rotate this 180 degrees in order to get the other half. And that's your job done. And of course that's 90% of the build, so only build the top left. Unless you're in survival, unfortunately, you have the short end of the stick and have to build this entire thing. We are now halfway done with our current quarter of the blimp, and this is mainly for creative mode users. Once you are done with this part, you just mirror it upwards, and that part will be ready for structure blocking. Also, sometimes I have issues with the ellipsoid generator with various parts protruding outward, and if you're having trouble with that, it's okay if you take a couple creative liberties here and there, because as long as you only change a block or two, it won't matter that much, because remember, we aren't robots here, so the stakes are fine. For you creative mode players, you should have 1/4 of a blimp done, and there are some imperfections on various parts, but that is completely okay. It's a giant build, and the small things make it a little bit more human, even if they are mistakes. Once you're ready to make the other parts, you need to place down a structure block that directly goes on this axis of symmetry, and your thing needs to be around 32 blocks tall, and make sure it gets every single block. You can see it's just perfect right there, and just measure it out and save it as just whatever you want. I could put X, I could put Y, I could put blimp, whatever. just make sure you save this entire thing and remove the scaffolding you used to get the structure block there. Once you have the bounding box around the structure, all you have to do is click save. And now you have this thing saved. For the loading part, we are mainly going to be looking at this middle button right here. And you're going to have different GUI on Bedrock Edition, and unfortunately I can't 100% help with that. If need be, you can look up a different tutorial for using structure blocks. Anyways, you just experiment between these, and you can see, first try, I have managed to do it. Except it is one block wider on this part, so I'm going to have to fix that. Either way, you just need to do some trial and error with this and see what works out. Now, after all that hard work, we now have just the balloon. And that balloon brings one amazing thing. Darkness. Enjoy your new creeper army. It will be sure to help the terrain down there. Anyways, what you want to start doing is go around maybe the first or second layer and make a 2-block thick layer of gray concrete like this. This will act as the rim, and you need to make it, of course, 2 blocks thick on all axes, which means this isn't good enough. You need to make it have the thickness. While you're building this part, although it should be double layered, you should triple layer it on some parts to cover up some of the white, which might not be in your best interest. And that involves just replacing blocks like these and leaving others depending on how they fit. Of course, make sure it's all 2 blocks thick, and make sure the connection is seamless. With all the gray concrete now properly pressed up against the rest of the blimp, we now want to make a divider wall here. 2 blocks thick, and this should go down maybe 5-6 blocks. Once you reach the bottom, you want to seal this entire place in, as in the edge of this outline here, with white concrete. Have the floor above it be birch or acacia or just whatever, and you'll be doing good. Once we have the dividing thing and some flooring, then we need to add a window on the shorter side. As you can see, this side is shorter, so add some glass panes. You might have to add some blocks here and there in order to connect it, but otherwise, you just need to do that. I recommend keeping it not on the outer block, so you might have to thicken it on parts like that. Otherwise, you just need to do this for the window. You'll have a window on the other side. Do the same thing with cyan terracotta, with light gray concrete stacked on top in order to make a wall. Bottom part done. You want to add a door to the back, and that's pretty easy. Just add 2 buttons on either side of this, and you have a door. Then, go to the front of this, place down some cyan terracotta, sort of like this, perhaps give it corners, and add various things that seem like they could be used for operating this thing. Then replace the ceiling with light gray concrete. Once we have the room with the ceiling, and we have the control center, then we have 2 final things to do. On the top, we want to add some lighting, and that's just some ultra frog light. And we have an even amount of blocks here, so it might be hard to add, but just give it a shot. It's okay if some of your lights are too wide. Then, for the final thing we need to do, we need to make lockers. And that's very simple. Cyan terracotta, and you place down some iron doors on them. Now you have lockers, in case, emergency parachutes. Anyways, just get the frog lights and the lockers. Lighting and lockers done, we have the interior of this completed. I also added some small windows here, just extra detailing to make sure that there's a little bit more light in here. With the interior done, there's only one last thing to do, and that is fins. On the back of it, as in the side without a window, you want to place down 2 gray concretes, and then you want to turn it into a circle, or half a circle. I have a circle generator in the description of this video, and what you do is you just insert the value, of how big you want it to be. This should be the left or right side, and it should be full length. So imagine as if it was like this, and then you cut off most of it going past here. If you understand what I'm saying, this should be a quite simple step. Also, there should be 3 to 4. 3 on the upper sides, and one last one down here. But the bottom one is optional. I have built 3 fins now. I did not add one on the bottom because it would make it inconvenient to get inside. But otherwise, what you want to do is take one of your fins, and after the point where you naturally end it, instead, you want to extend it for another 5 or 6 blocks. Then, you want to go 1 block further and start going downward, with like a slope of maybe -5 backwards. Just like this, you can make quite a nice fin, although you might need to shorten the top segment to make sure it doesn't trail off. Because if your fin is going off the side of the blimp, that's a bad sign. I have built 3 fins. I excluded the one on the bottom because it would be annoying to get inside otherwise, especially with an elytra. And what you want to do is once you end off the side of your fin, I shortened mine to 4 instead of 5, using a width of 15 for the circle. And what you want to do is cap it off, and then start going downward. Very simple, and make sure it digs into the side of the balloon. If it is going off the edge, that's a bad sign, and you should move it inward. Otherwise, you're doing pretty good if you're able to do this. For the final step, we want to add the rest of the fins, and that involves just going downward like this. You might want to recede the edges of this if you filled it up with cyan terracotta or something else, but otherwise, you're finished with the fins. And there is one final step that is optional, and that is a propeller. We have the 4 fins now, and it's looking quite nice. I've added the extra one on the bottom, it just didn't look great without it. Either way, we now need the propeller. This part's optional because you could replace it with something more high-tech like a rocket thruster, although I'm not going to cover that. And what you want to do is you have some straight lines going out, and then on one side you make it go outward a bit more in this direction. Repeat that 4 times, and you can replace the outermost block with gray concrete or add it on. And what do you know? You have 1 propeller blade. I have 2 propeller blades on this, and just one note about having 4. It's very easy to create accidental obscene imagery. So I recommend not having 4 unless you are very confident in your abilities, because if you know what I'm talking about, it's incredibly easy to accidentally create obscene imagery. Otherwise, our Zeppelin/Blimp is done. Although I've reviewed the terms and this is definitely not a Zeppelin, you can very easily convert it into a Zeppelin by just adding rooms on the inside. If you have rooms on the inside, then you've turned your blimp into a Zeppelin. I'm not going to be covering that part because that's literally just this part repeated a couple of times inside of the blimp with no windows. But if you have a city, or just anywhere really, you can fill the sky with one of these, although it requires a double chest of resources if you want this size. Still, it's quite a unique project, and will definitely take a day or 2, if you're looking for something to bide your time with. And with that, it's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe. Also, sometimes in this video my audio quality went down a little. That's because I managed to catch a common cold or possibly even the flu during the recording. Either way, please excuse that error. Anyways, enjoy the rest of your day. Gearsaw out.